And Jason Aponte is back with me as we discuss everything happening around the San Francisco 49ers. We got a lot to talk about. We've got MVP candidacy, Pro Bowls. We've got Cam Newton talking. We got Jason Verrett back. We got the 49ers beating the Seahawks clean sweep, second year in a row. And then eyes on the Cardinals as the 49ers have an opportunity to clinch the West and win the West, take the West. But they've already clinched their playoff spot, first team in the NFL to do so. We are going to talk about all that, but you guys already know what to do. Drop your spicy sourdoughs in the chat, and let's get after it. Let's go. That's Jason Aponte. I'm Brad Graham. We're going to get into it all right now. Mr. Aponte, 49ers are coming off a big W, and per usual, let's do a vibe check. What are the vibes over there on the East Coast for you, Mr. Aponte?
Immaculate and freezing. But, as long as the 49ers keep winning and staying hot, that'll be enough for me, especially considering it's at the cost of Seattle Seahawks misery. 5 straight losses, first time in Pete Carroll's career as the Seattle Seahawks coach that they've lost 4 straight. Couldn't have asked for a better way to do that. I mean, it just feels so good to be on the other side of this now.
Yeah, man, the 49ers 3-0 in the Bird Gauntlet. 2 Bird teams left. We got Cardinals, we got Ravens. We'll do a little we'll take a peek at the Cardinals coming on up. But let's start with the main topic today. Not only I guess around the 49ers universe, but the football universe. Literally everyone is talking about it. And if you don't know what Jason is doing, he's pointing to a Funko Pop of Cam Newton. And so Cam Newton has found himself at the main point of emphasis of discussion today. I heard he was on Undisputed. I haven't seen it yet. I've seen Dan, he was on, they were talking about it on Dan Patrick's show, like literally everything. So the story goes, I'm literally laying in bed, I think it was 2 nights ago, scrolling through, and I come across that clip in of Cam Newton talking about Brock Purdy as a game manager, says the 49ers aren't winning because of him. They go on to kind of explain what that is, what a game manager is, and kind of define it by their standards and all those different types of things. And they basically said a guy who comes in to not turn over the football isn't necessarily going to kind of push you to a win. He's just not going to lose it for you at the same time. Well, so I posted that to my channel, did a reaction video, and then, as part of the function of my channel, which is aggregation, I got aggregated by the NFL aggregate accounts, and then the thing went crazy. And now everyone's talking about it, and I haven't heard yet what your thoughts are on what he had to say, and all of it, the discourse around it, because like I said, the whole NFL world is talking about it. It's not just us in our little pocket of 49ers. Everyone's talking about it. So based on all of that, and I'll let you start where you want to start, but what is your thoughts, your feelings on Cam Newton and his thoughts on Brock Purdy being a game manager and all those different types of things?
Let me just say that this hurts me the most. As a staunch Cam Newton supporter, I feel one of the most disrespected MVPs in the history of our game. I feel right now, if you disagree with the take, which I do, it has now become your chance to slander Cam Newton for whatever you think he was as a player, how he dresses. And it all kind of goes back to what I was telling you, Brad. It's like everybody's kind of always waiting in the wings to jump on Cam, right? They're just waiting,
It's
right? Even
very
still,
true. It's very true. Ever since
like,
the I'm back thing, like
yep,
it feels like
yep.
he's just constantly carried a negative aura from a, I guess, outside perspective on him.
Yeah, like a lot of people wish failure on Cam Newton. Like when he came back and he was excited to score, right? And he had that one good game, and everybody's like, aha, look, like it's almost like you guys revel in watching him decline as a player. But you forget 15-1, MVP, literally one of the most dominant forces, one of the greatest college football players who have ever played, took Auburn to a national championship and won it. Let's not lose sight of that. Let's not lose sight of that. And don't, because you're upset at what he said, now lose sight of the fact that Cam Newton is still one of the best players to ever play our game that we love. Having said that, I am a big, big proponent of, at times, players say things that are wrong, and anytime a player says something doesn't make it gospel. I've disagreed with Jerry Rice. I've disagreed with Joe Montana. I've disagreed with many football players, some who would say are the best that have ever done it. Sure, their opinion is more valuable because they played football, but opinions are wrong every day, and this one's wrong. And I want to start with the whole game manager thing, because that couldn't be further from the truth with Brock Purdy. I think that is really doesn't make any sense. But I do want to break down the term game manager, because game manager isn't and shouldn't be something that's negative. But in this way that it was used, it's very negative.
Very
It's
negative.
very negative, and it's very wrong. It's very
Yeah.
negative and it's very wrong. Because if everybody could be a game manager, then why is it that the bottom half of the quarterback, tier or whatever, and certain quarterbacks can't even do that, manage the game, if it's so easy? And I disagree with, obviously, him calling Brock Purdy a game manager. I disagree with him calling Dak Prescott a game manager.
I was surprised by that. I was like, oh, the top two leading MVP candidates got the game manager tag. And the point of what you're saying is game manager, when used in a football context, has a very specific meaning and connotation. And that's what you're explaining.
Yeah, I mean, look, for lack of a better term, Alex Smith, when he was the San Francisco 49ers quarterback, was a game manager. Andy
He was
Dalton's a
like the
game manager.
definition of a game manager.
Right.
Yeah.
Like it's not a negative thing to be a game manager, but in this sense, it is being used as a negative, and it couldn't be further from the truth, Cam Newton. And I love you, buddy. I gotta give it to you though. Game manager, absolutely not. Are you watching these throws? It is not something that is just under control, and please just don't mess it up. They're allowing him to be aggressive, yards per attempt. Everything is there. I don't know what you watching Brock Purdy would lead you to believe that he's a game manager. I wholeheartedly disagree with this. I want to say players' opinions hold more weight because they played, but players' opinions are wrong just like everybody else's. What I disagree with now is the attacking Cam Newton like he never was ever any good, like he wasn't an MVP, like he isn't literally one of the greatest college football players who's ever played, like he isn't a guy. You can't tell the story of the NFL without talking about Cam Newton. Let's make sure we get that out there. I want to make sure that we get that out there because I'm tired of everybody kind of just using this as a chance to say, well, he was so bad at the end of his time. Yeah, his shoulder was shot because he got hit in the pocket. He wasn't running around. He got hit in the pocket. But don't forget the great things that Cam Newton did, right, in this league. But at the same time, I couldn't disagree more with him at this point, Brad. And players' opinions are wrong all the time. Like when Jerry Rice and Joe Montana said that Jimmy Garoppolo needs to stay and that they should never move away from him, that's wrong. That's your opinion, Joe Montana. That's your opinion, Jerry Rice, and you're the greatest, but you're wrong. You were wrong, right? Like I despise the narrative of, well, a player said it. Do you know better? In this regard, yes. And to take it a step further, Seth Joyner, and we're not done cooking the Eagles, Seth Joyner, who talks about the Eagles, is literally saying to Nick Bosa, 8 pressures, you were a ghost. You didn't lay any blueprint. And literally, the Dallas Cowboys took the 49ers blueprint. So you're wrong, Seth Joyner. I can go down the list of players who have said things that are absolutely nonsensical and don't make any sense at all. But because they played, it's taken as gospel. It should never be that. It should just be valued higher. So when people look at you and they say, you think you know better than a player, in certain instances, like this one, yes. Yes, I do. I do know, actually, in this one, he's not correct. That's his opinion. He's allowed to have it, but he's wrong. He's wrong. And that's it. Like, it's not hard because people just say, hey, he played in the NFL. He's got to be right. No, absolutely not. I do not subscribe to that. Never have. But Cam, come on, man. You got to do better, man. I expect more of you. You knew saying something like that was going to make this go crazy like this. And now everybody's just kind of just taking you to task for it. But take him to task for his opinion, not his playing career. Not his playing career. Stay away from that.
I agree with that 100%. Like, everyone's entitled to their opinion, right? And like, we especially know, being in the 49ers community, you come after one of our own, we're coming at you. That's just how it goes. Like that, we've been doing 49ers content long enough. Like, remember the whole arm fatigue thing, and then we just attacked anyone who said arm fatigue, and then it's like, oh wait, he kind of low key did have arm fatigue, right? Right?
Right?
Like,
Mike Silver doesn't know anything. He was literally right and on it the entire time.
so it's like, we as a fan base can get really riled up about things. And I think that's one of the awesome things about our fan base. Honestly, it's one of the things that I do love. And I get it. Like, Lisa says Cam is a diva, trash can, period. Like, and you're entitled to your opinion. And like, you might not like him as a person. You might not have followed his career or whatever. So when he says something like this, which, as you stated and is crystal clear, was a shot at Brock based on their own definition, they actually they assigned the context to what they were saying in the show, which was clear disrespect. And so obviously, if you're a 49er fan and you don't give two craps about Cam Newton, you're who cares about Cam Newton? Who cares about what he has to say about my team or my quarterback? Like, so people are going to have a varying of opinions on it. I would like to focus on the substance of what he said and debate the substance of the notion that Brock is a game manager, those things. Like, wears, I don't care what he looks like. That was one of the things that I talked about too in my reaction video was, dude, he's former MVP, number one overall pick, like almost won a Super Bowl. Like, I don't think in one sentence I slandered Cam. It was more so of the fact of, Cam, are you watching? Cam, are you watching the tape? Because to me, and I can only speak for myself as someone who's watched every snap of Brock Purdy and studied it, that I don't see it. I can't see the argument that he's making. Like, so that's why I like jokingly tagged him on Instagram. Hey, come on my channel. Let's watch the tape. I bet I could prove you wrong, because I just don't see what he's talking about. And so if we're going to attack it from that angle, I agree with you 100% too. He's dead wrong. Like, he's dead wrong on the take. He's dead wrong on the football analysis. And part of that kind of evolution of that conversation is football evaluation is really hard, Jason. Really hard. Just ask the 49ers when it comes to trying to lock down that third round running back, right? We joke about it all the time, right? And I'm just, I'm bringing light to it. But the point being is, like, football evaluation is very difficult. And even if you've played at the highest of levels and you've reached the highest of mountaintops, you still might not know exactly what you're looking at or how to evaluate something properly. And that feels weird saying, right? Because they are like, Cam was at the mountaintop at one point in his career. And so but that's why I come back to, Cam, did you watch? Did you watch the tape? Something tells me Cam's not out here grinding tape. He's not one of these guys on this podcast putting out film breakdowns. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can determine the difference. I think he's more of the boardroom type podcast, kind of vibe, like really focusing on high level talking points, pop culture, fashion, music, kind of melting pot, that aspect of it. So, I have no idea what Cam's watching, but based on his take, I would say he's not watching. And listen, I can understand from an outside perspective, if you're not watching, you've made the point a million times. We've talked about it a million times. It's so easy to say Brock's going to fail at one point. He's Mr. Irrelevant. He's 6 foot, 200 pounds. Looks like he should be bagging my groceries. There's no way he can be an elite level quarterback, right? That's always what the argument comes back to for people who don't really watch. But thankfully for the 49ers, thankfully for us, we all watch and we all know what's happening. And we understand all three things can be true. Kyle Shanahan is elite play caller. Brock Purdy has elite weapons. and Brock Purdy is playing like an elite quarterback. Like,
Mhm.
right? All those things can be true at once, right?
Yeah, and again, everything about the argument is exactly what we said. It's so much easier to bet against the last pick. Again, I think I made the example on the show that you and I did, when the 49ers took over the number 1 seed.
Yeah. And I was like, dude, killed it. I probably referenced it like 7 times.
It's insane because there's so many players that need people. We're literally looking at Patrick Mahomes and saying, God, he needs a receiver. Oh, so Patrick Mahomes needs a receiver, but nobody else does, right? And nobody else has ever played with any sort of elite processors, right? And then think about this. The people that have been drafted in the first round get chance after chance after chance. I mean, for God's
Yeah.
sakes, there were people that believed that Sam Darnold, after 6 years of putting out tape, is all of a sudden going to figure it out. He's allowed that much rope. He's allowed
Carson
that
Wentz
much
was
rope.
rostered.
Carson Wentz, yeah, Carson Wentz. Let's see what he looks like in this offense, or maybe this, and then maybe that. No, those guys are who they are. But yet, with Brock, because he's the last pick, it's got to be final. He can't improve. Nothing can ever change. It's just you have to be good right now, and it's just insane. The discourse around him is insane, but it's so much easier to knock him down for being the last pick. It just is, man. And again, I think you nailed it when you said it's not like there's high level analysis coming from Cam, right? And I think there are levels to all types of content, whether it be 49ers, whether it be NFL, right? If I
Mhm.
want to be informed, I'm not going to watch Undisputed or First Take. If I want to be
Right.
informed, I watch NFL Matchup or I watch people who do film breakdowns. I watch JT O'Sullivan. I watch Chase Daniel, right? I watch guys that really know how to explain it to you. Kurt Warner, those type of guys. There are people to be entertained by. There are people to be educated by. The better ones know how to do both. The
Mhm.
really high level ones know how to do both. But it's like the best way I can put it is if I go to watch an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, I'm not going for Oscar winning acting. I'm going to watch him be the Terminator and blow people up. If I go to a Daniel Day-Lewis movie, I'm not going for special effects and a big budget. I'm going to watch a masterclass in acting by Daniel Day-Lewis. Look at who you're looking at and asking them, and you're looking at what they're getting. Is that what you should be expecting? Right. And I think that's the best thing, right? Like let's take it a step further. Let's do rap music, right? If you if you're going to listen to maybe one of the newer rappers and you're looking for lyricism or you're looking for high level wordplay, why would you do that? Why would you do that? Why would you expect something from something like that, right? Like
That's a
if
good point. It's
yeah,
a
I
great
mean, like
point.
if look, if I'm gonna listen to Gunna, I'm not listening for lyricism. I'm listening for vibe music, and I'm listening to something that's gonna get my head nodding. When I want to hear
I'm going to
lyrics,
J. Cole for lyricism.
yes, exactly. There's guys to go for. Like, there's guys to go to for everything. So I think that's what's important. Expecting high level analysis and breakdowns from someone who is giving you entertainment and just basically vibes, and then getting upset when they don't come up with the right take. I think is a little bit misguided. But I will say this: the problem is that Cam has such a platform that there are people that don't understand the difference that are going to take that and then use that whenever they have an argument with someone else, right? And talk about it. And I think a lot of people are influenced by the whole, hey, he played in the NFL thing, right? Instead
Of
of
course.
listening to what they're saying, they're just looking at who said it and just saying, hey, do you think you know better than him? In this instance, yeah, we do. So I think it's a lot of things. And it's just, again, there is no bigger business in the NFL right now than talking about the San Francisco 49ers quarterback position. And it's been that way for 5 years. It's literally been that, right? And now it just so happens that the San Francisco 49ers have an MVP candidate as their quarterback. So now it's even bigger business. So
Mhm.
I will say this: expect more of these types of things as the season goes on, and expect more of these takes. It's going to happen because it's big business and it brings eyes to your content.
I will say this though, as someone who does 49ers content creation and really loves propping up the team and like celebrating all the fun stuff that these guys do. Um I do love that this kind of feels like a bit of a galvanizing moment
Mhm.
because as you've discussed, the reason why the 49ers quarterback position has been the main point of emphasis for what feels like 5 years is because they've been on the hunt. They've been searching, and it was CJ Beathard in the 3rd round, passing on to everyone they passed on. then trading for Jimmy, and then Jimmy's like, it's like, oh my God, we have our guy after 5 games of what he did at the end of that year. Then he gets hurt. And then it's, oh, was Nick Mullins the guy? And then it's like, okay, well, Jimmy's healthy. We get back. We go to the Super Bowl. We lose the Super Bowl. Then we go into 2020 and it's like, well, Jimmy's not that guy. And they've made that abundantly clear just based on body language on the sideline. And then they go up to 3. Or first it was the Stafford Watson rumors potentially getting traded for, and then it was the trade to 3, and then it was Trey Lance, and then it was keeping Jimmy and Trey Lance, and then it was, okay, now it's Trey Lance's job. We're getting rid of Jimmy. Actually, Jimmy's coming back. And then all of them get hurt. So the point being, you guys know the history of the 49ers quarterback position. There's always something to talk about. And this is the first time where we are like, wow, is this really happening? Do we really have our guy? Is this it? Like, there's a lot of, I think that's part of the argument too. It's like a lot of people are hesitant because they've been burned. You know, I put my eggs into the Jimmy basket and I was like, yeah, that probably wasn't, it didn't turn out as we wanted it to.
Mhm.
And it's like with Brock, it's like, do we put our eggs in that basket? And it's like, at a certain point, as a fan at least, there's no harm in doing that. But the point being is, with guys like Cam saying this and other guys like Nick Wright and Steven Ruiz, I believe it is, with the Ringer.
That's
just,
a bit.
you know,
That's a bit. That's a
right.
bit. He's leaning into the
Exactly.
bit now.
It's a bit. And so, but it gets us going, right?
Mhm.
Because we want to be galvanized for our quarterback. And so what it's doing, in my opinion, is it's galvanizing everyone to Brock, because it wasn't like that 4 months ago, Jason.
Mhm.
We had battles in the Twitter streets over Trey Lance and Brock Purdy. We
Mhm.
had battles in the streets over Jimmy Garoppolo, Trey Lance. Like, people got scarred. Like, I see people still talking about. I got weird hate about the stuff from training camp too. So it's like, when you see everyone rally behind Brock, even if Cam's message is misguided, misplaced, you don't believe it, I do like that part of it. I do like that everyone's rallying behind Brock, and it's nice to see everyone like, no, he's our guy. Keep his name out your mouth. I kind of like that from this fan base.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie.
Well, I'll say this, as 49ers content creators, that's part of the reason that we're able to build our own communities and stuff, because you guys are so dialed in and you guys have your ears to almost everything, right? And you're so interested, right? I can't imagine what it's like to be like, for instance, like a Jacksonville Jaguars creator. Do you think that they're out here in these streets like rallying together at all? Like,
Are there
I
Jags
don't think so.
creators?
Yeah, I
Sorry.
don't know. I don't
I didn't
know.
mean
No, I don't
they
know.
catching strays
Right.
for no reason. I apologize.
But the best part about this, whether you like my content, like our content, whatever, or don't, is it's still gonna have eyes on it because everyone is so dialed in always. And that's part of it, right? Like every little bit of it. And this is what everybody picked up on with the Mac Jones stuff and everything, is what drives clicks is talking about the 49ers in any form or fashion, because they're gonna rally and they're gonna come get you. I mean, look, I'm not scared to go to war with any other fan base, because my own fan base has absolutely fried me and absolutely talked crazy about me, said things about my kid. You think I'm scared to take on the Eagles fan base when my own fan base literally says sometimes, I hate you, you're terrible, you're the worst? I'm good. I've got the thickest skin in the world. You know why? Because of our own community. So I'm not scared to say anything about anybody else, because when I say something that this fan base doesn't like, even if we're a part of the same one, they're going to absolutely flame me. So I'm good. I built a lot of tolerance to it. And I think one other thing, I guess the message is this: stop letting every little thing that happens like this send you into a tizzy, right? If someone says something that's clearly off base in the way that Cam Newton has, it shouldn't lead you to be so angry that you lose sight of the fact that Cam Newton was a very good football player when he was in his prime, right? Like, it's great that you're passionate. We need the passion, but every time that someone says something about Brock, the dopamine rush that people get from quote tweeting them and dunking on them with stats and having people be like, yeah, you're right, cook him. That stuff has led you to now every little thing about this team that's said negatively have you turn into like these rabid people. And it's like, listen, some of those things
And
should
then you
be
got
ignored.
people like me, like getting them all queued up.
Get them riled up. Yeah, I mean, Brad, you're like you like throw that out there, and then what did you expect? It's like literally, it's Mel Gibson and Braveheart. Hold and then charge.
I knew exactly what I mean. I would be lying to say if I thought it was go this crazy, but like I know where the state of the franchise, the state of the fan base is right now. And so I knew that was going to elicit a certain response. Now, this big of a response, maybe not, but I knew what I was doing, like, and that's the point. It's like it's fun to be a group, a community, everyone together, kind of fighting, rallying for the same thing. And that's ultimately my goal, like, is to get everyone on the same page, get everyone hyped, get everyone going. And that's what makes it fun. Obviously, when it starts getting personal, that's when it's like, all right, let's chill a little bit. Like,
let's keep it about the football opinion.
It's football at the end of the day, right? Like, no one's getting hurt. Like, let's relax. So at the end of it, though, I think it's a fun conversation to have. I don't think it's that serious, but it's just funny, man. It's just funny because we had these conversations with Jimmy, right? It was the same thing. People coming after Jimmy, and it's weird having the hindsight that we do, because I was a Jimmy supporter for, some of the same reasons that I just mentioned, but there's a stark difference between Brock Purdy's play and Jimmy's play. Like, wouldn't you say? Like,
yes, not even close. I mean, it's not even close. I mean, literally, I sent out a tweet after Sunday, and it's the picture of Deebo Samuel running and having that ball like placed right in his hands from Purdy. And I said so many times we would run back the film and we'd take, we'd look and we'd see a guy streaking down the field wide open. If the ball wasn't even thrown, or if it was underthrown or overthrown, it felt like those plays were never being hit. So that's your first sign that something is completely different, right? Like, you have the throw to Aiyuk, the 70-yarder. You have that throw to Deebo. You have these throws on the run that are like dots, right? Like, it's clear to anybody who's watched. I don't care what anybody says. Jimmy Garoppolo and Brock Purdy couldn't be further apart in terms of who they are at all, right? And that's not to knock Jimmy Garoppolo either, because I don't want this to turn into that either. I don't want this to turn into
we
that
always
either,
have to
right?
preface that we're not trying to take shots at Jimmy.
No.
It's just a natural comparison.
But it's an objective fact. It's an objective fact that they are nothing alike. They're nothing alike at all. One's far more aggressive. One sees the field better. One I would say has great intermediate range, right? The both of them do. But I think that Jimmy, again, when
Jimmy wasn't throwing those layered throws over the middle.
No. Jimmy had to see it, then throw it, right? Brock is throwing it before they're out of the route.
All that motion, right, to move the linebackers out, and he would go right behind it.
Right.
It was whenever they messed that up, he would still throw it, and then it'd be a suicide slant, or someone would get a pick.
Right, and that's the thing is when the ball leaves the screen, you don't have that anxiety when Purdy throws it anymore, right?
Yeah.
I just don't. And again, that's not taking shots at Jimmy. It just is what it is. That's objective, right? Take your feelings out of it. And when you watch them play, I don't think either of them are similar. I just don't.
Yeah, let's get through. I got a couple super chats in here. I'm gonna try to time the ones up with what we're talking about, and then I see the one about Ji'Ayir Brown. We'll definitely talk about that one, because that was actually something we talked about last week, and then so we'll talk about that again. Cam is a hater, but that's all good, fam. BCB is MVP. Beast Mode drops another one. I only listen to people that's smart. That's why I'm here. That's why we love you. I love it.
I mean, today I might sound smart. Next week they might just be like, "What the hell is this guy talking about?" But I appreciate that.
BCB is like Naturo. People hate him until. Oh, sorry, Naruto. People hate him until Hokage. This is an anime reference that has clearly gone straight over my head. But I believe you. So I guess let's say this. Any last, because we've started the show 30 minutes talking about Cam, talking about Brock. Any last comments on this situation and just Brock in general? And then we'll move on to other topics. Because believe it or not, Jason, there are other players that play on the 49ers.
Are there? Oh man, that's boring. Look, love you, Cam. Loved you as a player. Super fun to watch. One of my favorite players to watch play football. Absolute legend. Cam's a system podcaster. Cooked him. Oh my god.
Yeah.
But this one's off base, and I feel like I feel like the Brock, and then saying Dak, like I could even take it a step further. That I feel like Tua's probably landing more in that game manager section because I've already given out the unpopular opinion. This is gonna get everybody. I mean, I'm not looking at the comments because I'm sure like they're flaming me or whatever. But like, it is gonna get me right back into the hot water. Why I keep saying that Tyreek Hill is the MVP is look at how Tua Tagovailoa operates that offense when he's not available. It looks awful. Mike McDaniel can't even call the plays that he wants to. Now, when Brock lost Trent and Debo, he didn't look lost. He didn't look lost. He just didn't look as good. There's a difference.
There was
right?
massive issues with the defense. Like that
yes,
was the biggest issue.
So that's a compliment to Brock. That's a compliment to Brock. Because if you take Tyreek Hill away from Tua, that offense does not function. It was not operating. They lost to the Tennessee Titans. It doesn't operate. Now, when Brock didn't have him, obviously there was the costly turnovers, but against Cincinnati, he was the best player on the field for large stretches of that game. There was never one time that I watched Tua play in that game without Tyreek Hill that I said he's the best player on the field. So that's why, again, as of right now, on December 13th, Tyreek Hill is probably the most valuable player in football because look at that effect that he has on that offense. Brock didn't look anywhere near as bad as Tua did that night. That's a compliment to Brock. And then the Jared Goff thing. Jared Goff they're getting a lot from him in Detroit. They're getting a lot from him. I think Ben Johnson does an incredible job of bringing the things that he was good at in Los Angeles over, and they have a great offensive line, too. And they've got weapons. Yes, 100%. Like, that's the coach's job, regardless of limitations and skill set. How can I put you in a position to succeed? I would say that Jared Goff leans a little bit more towards game manager than Brock. And Goff's been fine. But it's just funny that those four guys got singled out. And I couldn't disagree more about Dak and Brock. Like, I couldn't disagree more. And you know that I'm telling you the truth because Dak is a Cowboy. And I literally said, what did I say on Bully Ball? Like, this is exactly what Dak does every single year. He beats up on teams he's supposed to, bad defenses, and everyone starts to get hyped. I got to see it. I've seen this movie too many times before I'm going to sit here and all of a sudden say that. But he's playing well, like he usually does, like they usually do. But I can't understand Dak and Brock Purdy being game managers. Neither of them are profiling that way this year at all. Like, there's nothing about their game that leans to game manager at all.
Right, because there's nothing statistically or on film that necessarily backs it up. Now, the things that back it up are he's got the weapons and he's got a system in place. But again, that comes to the point, are you watching? Because you see multiple times a game Brock Purdy do something outside of structure where you're like, oh, that was nice. I wasn't expecting that, but that was really nice. Like, we talked about the examples a million times against the Seahawks, like just this last game. So at the end of the day, I think it comes down to, again, understand what you're getting into when you're listening to someone and what angle they're coming from. Cam isn't coming from this from a X's and O's. I'm breaking down the tape, and this is how I fundamentally have evaluated this. He's evaluating this from 30,000 feet, right? And so when you're evaluating from 30,000 feet, you might not see everything. So at the end of the day, it is what it is. It gave us something to talk about, gave us a lot of content, and like I said, galvanized our fan base, I think, a little bit more to Brock Purdy, which I don't mind as someone who appreciates Brock Purdy's game and do think he is, at this point, the 49ers franchise quarterback. So I'm fine with it. I'm absolutely fine with it. Let's switch gears, though. I've seen it asked a couple times, and so I'm going to bring all of your guys' super chats at once. But right here, Evading Robots says, just finished Richard Sherman's interview with Ji'Ayir Brown. He's made of the right stuff. Ji'Ayir Brown, that being, what an intelligent and driven young man who will be stellar alongside Hufanga in the years to come. And then Gammon followed that one up with, have you seen the Sherman Ji'Ayir Brown interview? I'll first ask you, have you seen it?
I haven't. But if you're saying that, then I believe it, because when I interviewed him, that was my exact sentiment. And you guys can check out that interview on my channel as well too.
Mm-hmm.
I said it when the injury happened. I'm going to reiterate it because it feels like it's aging pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
I was never downplaying the loss of Talanoa Hufanga because he's an all-pro. How can you do that? But Ji'Ayir Brown's skill set is so similar. And it literally was like a hand in glove fit. Like you get lucky that you have someone who the ball finds them. He 2 interceptions, as you noticed. You know, he's a ball hawk playing center field on an interception. The other one bounced towards him, pretty much like Hufanga, how he gets his. Plays fast, plays downhill. He's a hitter. That is what I meant by, like, the defense isn't as much trouble as you think they are on the back end, because if they can continue to put Tig in spots that they put Hufanga to succeed, then you'll see some drop off based on experience because he hasn't played. But the things that people complain about, or are, all right, I won't say complain, or are concerned about with Tig, they were concerned about with Hufanga. Bad angles, missed tackles, right? Big plays over your head. Those are the things you're worried about. But I'm not seeing that, right? Like the whole thing with the missed tackles thing, he has 3 missed tackles in about 160 snaps. That's not concerning. Big plays, he hasn't given up many. But he's finding a way to take the football away. He looks like a guy that belongs with the team. And once you listen to him speak for a few minutes, the young man's been through a lot. His brother was murdered. He lived in Trenton, New Jersey, which is the state capital of New Jersey, but it's not a nice place. He's gone through a lot, and he made it to Penn State. All of that, you have to be emotionally mature. They did his day at his high school, and he stood around and he signed autographs and took pictures with kids after the event for almost 2 hours. He's a big part of that community. He's wise beyond his years, and listening to him speak even for a little bit, you can walk away with that. And that's exactly what the 49ers said when they drafted him about maturity. Feels like he's a veteran, wise beyond his years, right? And, you know, again, like, if you guys want to see, it's a quick 5-minute interview. It's on my channel. You can look it up. It's not in the live section. It's up there on the top. Listen to him speak for 5 minutes and listen to him answer my questions, and you'll absolutely understand exactly what everybody else is starting to see now. But I'm so happy for the young man, and thank God that they did draft him, because they would be in a bad way if they didn't have somebody with his skill set to slide in for Hufanga, because they are so similar, and they are going to be great together next year when it's just them two. If Tashawn Gibson's not there, they're going to be phenomenal. They're going to have 2 guys that can rotate center field, play the line, blitz, be around the ball, be hitters. The safety group is going to be good for years to come, and it's going to be because of Hufanga and Tig.
I remember watching that interview you did with Tig, and that was my instant takeaway. Was like, oh, he's got presence, because obviously he was a draft crush of mine for what he did on tape. That's part of the hard part of evaluating from where we are. We don't get to figure out who the person is, and that's such a huge part of the evaluation, the intangible aspects. What's the driver? What makes these guys great? You see guys like Kadarius Toney have all the talent in the world, but his intangibles are probably one of the worst I've ever seen. It's why I loved him coming out of college till I figured out who he was. And, like, say I have a board that I swiped them off. I said, no way in hell do I want this guy anywhere around my team, because he's not about it. He's not driven by football. Guys like Tig, coming from where he's coming from, his background, all of that, he puts that into ball. And that's what makes ball special for these guys. Is it's a way for him to get his family out. It's a way for him to support everyone around him and his community and give back. And that means more, right? Versus like, oh, I'm just trying to get a check. I'm just trying to get the bag, trying to get the clout. Like, he's trying to do it for the people around him. And that's what the evaluators are trying to find. They're trying to figure out what makes you love football. And if it's the love of the game and you have all these other things that you're putting into it, guess who's going to go hard? Guess who's going to do the extra? Guess who's going to make his teammates better? because of the example that he sets. And that's one of the most impressive things about Tig so far. And I remember it against the Jags game. 49ers posted sights and sounds on the sideline on their YouTube channel. And Tig is a backup safety, special teamer. Hasn't seen the field at all this season outside maybe some garbage time snaps. And he's out here hyping all the boys up. Like he's like trying to get around the coaches to be like, let's go. Like I was like, oh, that's different. That's a different, and it wasn't like to be seen like, let's go. It was like he's genuinely invested in his teammates and wanting to get them going. And I'm like, oh, that's what leaders are made of, right? Like you could feel it. And it goes back to your interview when you could feel it as well. And I haven't seen the Richard Sherman interview, and I'm probably going to watch it after this. But I'm really excited for Tig, man. Like people making too much about the missed tackle. Like literally, he just took a poor angle. It happens all the time.
Yeah, Brad.
Like
Yeah, that's Brad. That's why they signed Logan Ryan, because they were so worried about Ji'Ayir Brown. Like
that's why they pulled Logan Ryan off the cruise, because Tig unfortunately took one poor angle. Like
What?
I was like, this is ridiculous. I remember when you asked me that question, I was like, do you think they're gonna bench Tig? I was like,
No.
I honestly hadn't seen too much of that conversation bubbling up, but when you asked me, I was like, that's wild, because I watched the tape and I was like, he was actually doing really good. He just had a couple miscues, which, spoiler alert, no football player plays a perfect game. I don't know if anyone knew this.
Big
right?
rookie.
Like, it's really difficult to play a perfect game, especially at this level. So Tig's phenomenal. He's made of the right stuff, and he's getting better week in, week out.
One more thing too. He held a speech. And two things stuck out to me. He said, "I see a lot of young people here. I want to be the example to show you that you can get out of here and you can go do your thing if you're motivated." And then he says something that was such a bar, and it was burned in my mind. Like I never forgot it. He said, "Humble's not a choice." And I think that is such a wise thing to say from a young man of his age, to be able to know that being confident and being humble can go hand in hand. And that's exactly what he is. And he's very well spoken, well mannered. His mom would not let him leave until he shook everybody's hand. Said his mom is the example, and he does it all for his family. And it's just something about what you said. Remember you said the hardest thing to scout is not the player, is the person. Well, if we're doing that, then I think that's probably what the 49ers looked at when they said, okay, I see the skill set, we can see that. But then they bring him in for the interview and they're like, okay, this like absolutely closes the deal.
Like,
and that's why,
oh yeah, this is the guy.
And he's going to be our first pick in the 3rd round. And God help us, we got a 3rd round pick that's actually going to be helping. I love it so much, man.
hey, no, Jake Moody strays. I'm just kidding.
Jake Moody's great too, guys. Jake Moody's great too. I'm sorry.
Kidding.
You're good. No, he's good though. He's good. He hasn't missed since the Vikings. Good job, buddy. I love that for him.
But the point being is, I'm really excited for Tig, man. Him and Git playing really well together.
Yep.
Again, one of the things that I love about Tig is his closing speed. Like when he diagnoses something and he decides
fires.
he is gone. And then he hits you. He doesn't slow down to brace for contact. He drives and tackles through. And we're going to see, we haven't really seen the massive hits yet, but he's going to, I don't want to say this word, but he's going to destroy someone at one point. It's going to happen. And it's just going to be a function of him running full speed and colliding at the right time. And he's going to form tackle. He's going to drop his shoulder and he's going to light someone up. So I'm really excited about Ji'Ayir, and I think he's going to continue to improve. And so
everyone
happy for the kid, man.
Yeah. Everyone was kind of, everybody loved the DeAndre Swift, Diamador Lenore hit. And I think it was diagnosed well. But in that same Philly game, there was a throw out to AJ Brown on the sideline. There was numbers, right? Like they had the blocking. And Tig fired on that ball, and AJ Brown is massive. Tig fired on that ball and stuffed him and stopped him, right? He had 3 defensive stops in that game. That was one of them. And I still believe that we haven't gotten to a point where he's fully playing as fast as he can and as free as he wants to, right? Because right now
It's a
he's
rookie.
playing through the speed. He's watching how things are developing. He knows what his responsibilities are, but it hasn't gotten to that moment yet where he can just play like his hair is on fire and he's not thinking anymore. Like he's diagnosing and he's firing. We still haven't gotten there yet. And I think that's what we're talking about because he's only played 3 or 4 games. So you can see it. It's jumping off the tape. It's really there. It's just there for you. I just don't understand where the missed tackles things came from because he's only missed 3. And I don't understand where, like, oh, he's giving up big plays. I think it was like 1 or 2. I mean, for God's sakes, Brad, in the first game against Tampa Bay, and I was there, I see him lined up against Mike Evans, who is one of my favorite receivers in the league, and I think never gets his just due because he's doing something in this league that no other receiver's ever done, which is have as many consecutive 1,000-yard seasons as him. He's out there covering him one-on-one on a fade route, on a throw up. Like, it's just that type of stuff in a game where you were thrown into the fire, regardless if you're gonna, I don't care that you make mistakes as long as you play confident. As long as you're not losing that confidence, right? I'd rather you make a mistake with your whole chest than look hesitant. That's the best way I could put it. And I think that's where he's starting to develop and get it more now. Is like, I understand my responsibilities. I'm diagnosing fast now. And now I can get downhill and I can lay some wood and I can get to the ball. I can get to the ball, right? He's a ball hawk. He talked about that. There's a skill set that I have that cannot be taught. We always be around the football. And I mean, for God's sakes, Hufanga will be on the sideline. The ball gets tipped. Hufanga's got it on the sideline. I'm like, he was sitting on the bench. How did the ball find him? Like, that type of thing is something you can't teach. So I think that's, again, like, their skill sets aren't redundant. You just want to double up on that so you can play fast and be versatile.
Yeah, and I think the bottom line is when Huff comes back and you got Ji'Ayir and it's Gibbs' time to hang him up. He's Gibbs playing at a phenomenal level, so
He is.
I
He's
don't
playing very
want
well.
him to hang him up.
Mhm.
Gibbs playing great, but at a point when all 3 are back, it's gonna be fun, man. It really
Oh,
is.
yeah.
It's gonna be fun on that back end. You got Charvarius Ward, Diamador Lenore, Ambry Thomas, Jason, comma Jason Verrett. What do you think about
Yes.
that?
Oh, I love it, man. I mean, you obviously think about the injuries, right, to him, and does that zap his juice? We don't know, right? Like, we haven't seen, but I love it, man. I think what people forget, right, and I can't stand it. Oh, he's injury prone. Oh, he's injury prone. Like, oh, get out of here. Okay, getting back from an injury is hard because of the physical part. Imagine having to go through the mental part of it, right? You tear your Achilles, you tear your ACL, you tear your other ACL. And you have to get back. The mental aspect and how hard it is for someone to do that over and over again speaks to the man, the player, and that's why I believe you were posting it. And I was just watching it right before we came on. Them asking about them asking Debo, them asking everyone in that locker room what it feels like, and they asked Verrett, and they love him. They love him because they understand, one, that when he's right, and when he was right in 2020, he was a baller. He was locking down DeAndre Hopkins, and that was nothing short of a medical memory, like miracle right there itself, right? But those guys in that locker room know what it's like when you have a season-ending injury and how hard it is to, not one, build up the strength in whatever the injury is, but two, get yourself back to a spot where you can be mentally good and you can play fast and you don't have to worry about that. The confidence and mental aspect part is the part that goes completely overlooked. And everyone in that locker room watched him work in the training rooms to keep coming back. Anyone else would have probably given up. I think
Yep.
that is the level of respect that everyone has in there. And I love it. If he gets to see the field and he's productive, I love it. But you know what? Having him around, having him as a veteran presence, having Ambry Thomas be able to ask him questions and try to figure things out, because Verrett stopped being such an athletic freak and started to play with more instinct and understanding what's going on in front of him and what's diagnosed in front of him. That is going to be an invaluable asset, man. So it's good to have him around. The vibes are immaculate when it comes to Jason Verrett, man. I'm happy that he's back.
Dude, it's so great. Like, just from that aspect alone, that's a guy that walks into this locker room and immediately has the respect of every single player in that locker room, including every single captain. Like, if he doesn't get hurt, he probably is a captain on this team,
Hmm.
right? Like, he probably becomes that type of glue guy for the 49ers. And I thought he was going to hang it up, man. I really did. It took him about a year and a half to come back from that ACL. Remember, that happened to him week 1 of that
Detroit.
2021 season. And it was like week 10. I don't even know the exact week, but they're about to face the Chargers. And he was finally about to play. And he ruptured his Achilles in practice. Like, I was gutted for that guy. I mean, you talk about a player who had a Hall of Fame trajectory, just absolutely career derailed by injuries. Like, so unfortunate. So unfortunate, but I loved the guy. I loved him coming out of TCU, man. He was one of my guys, and I followed his whole career. And that's why I love that he's on the Niners. Like, I love that he gets to be that guy with us. And you've got a young room, man. You got Charvarius Ward, who's coming into his own, Diamador Lenore coming into his own, Ambry Thomas coming into his own. You got young guys like Darrell Luter Jr., who could be something later on down the road. When you got a guy that is so solid like JV, and you have that example in that room, it's only going to help everyone else. So even if he doesn't ever play, just his presence alone, I think, has an impact.
I think, again, because it was so long ago and people were just like, well, that was so long ago, that it like lessens his impact when he was good, because this man, when he was a part of the San Diego Chargers, was clamping prime AB. And I'm listen to what I'm saying. Not the guy that you see right now on social media, not the guy who played for the Raiders, not the guy who played for the Patriots for one game. I am talking about the guy that was literally putting up 100 reception seasons like they were going out of style, who was unstoppable. JB was on an island against him one-on-one. I don't care if you never play again after that. That is damn impressive. And if you don't believe it is, then you don't respect the sport. That's it, man. And that's the type of player that he was. But to see his career change, and this is what makes football players, especially guys like him, like the same thing with Richard Sherman. When your physical juice gets zapped a little bit, you got to rely on smarts. Sometimes you didn't need the smarts because you had all the physical aspects. I think that's what's impressive, and that's the part that you should hone in on is, now I don't have the speed to go ahead and do this and this. I've got to rely on what I'm seeing. That comes from studying. That comes from understanding route concepts. That comes from understanding your opponent. All of those things are important. So regardless of whether he gets to be there, him being around to mentor those guys and still just be a good vibe, like feeling for the team, there's no way you can turn it down, especially with him just sitting on the practice squad.
Yeah, man, I love it, and I hope he plays. I really do.
Me too.
I think it'll be something.
I hope he plays as long as there's no other injury.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
not at the
right. Let's just make sure
someone else
losing. Like maybe
losing out.
Maybe Jason Verrett outplays someone and starts somewhere, right? Like I'd love that, but
he gets the call up to the practice squad and they throw him out there, give him a couple snaps, get everyone hyped up, like at a home game or something.
Yeah,
that would be a lot of fun. So we had that going on today. What do you think? I know it is what it is, not a crazy deal, but the San Francisco 49ers have 24 players in the top 10 of Pro Bowl voting. 10, I believe, first in NFC voting, fan voting, that is. Are you surprised, or is this just the 49er fans being the 49er fans?
I'm not surprised, because why wouldn't they be? Right? Why wouldn't they be? And 49er fans are showing out with the Pro Bowl voting. But, Brad Graham, the 49ers aren't going to be playing in the Pro Bowl. There will be no 49ers competing in that flag football contest in that weekend. Because they have a game the week after. But it's good. Yeah, I love the recognition. A lot of those guys have in their contract, bonuses that'll be triggered by being Pro Bowlers, by being all pros. 100%. It's nice to see the recognition. It's nice to see the recognition across the board, because you look at all the positions and you're like, oh, Brock, oh, Juszczyk, oh, McCaffrey, oh, Debo, oh, Kittle, oh, Trent. Like, it's literally every single player that's at the top of their game. But yeah, I mean, whether they end up and stay there doesn't really matter, because the San Francisco 49ers, none of them will be competing in the Pro Bowl.
Yeah. So it's a cool situation. And of course, the 49ers fans are going to come out here and support their team. I think it's cool, though, that all the guys are getting the respect and love that they deserve, and again, it's just another cool thing to add to the list. Appreciate the super sticker. I'm going to get through a couple of these. Hope Purdy is a TB12 pay cut type of guy. He's going to be asking for a check here in a couple years. Cam mad because Brock is the kid from the Cam commercial. Oh, getting the
I'm
arm
just getting warmed
ready.
up. And then
Yeah.
I could come take your job. Yeah. What? Whoa, slow down.
Oh, good stuff. And then Gammon just dropped one. Says Brandon Aiyuk had an interesting game. He was part of 2 offensive turnovers, yet still produced. What letter grade do you give him and why? You want to take this one
B
first?
minus. B minus. Again, like he was wide open the entire game. Without the fumble. On the interception, I watched it. I watched it again. I watched it again. I watched it again. I know this is a boring answer. I'm not sure who it was on, but it was a clear miscommunication. So I don't know if I ding Aiyuk for it. I don't know if like what the exact concept was. Because if I don't know, I'm not gonna make something up. And I think that's what a lot of people have rushed to do with a lot of plays. Like, oh, that's on Aiyuk. Is it? What's the concept? Or what's the drop? Like what was, did he think he was gonna do one thing? Who's correct? Do we know? We'll never know. We don't know how it's being coached. So I'll say the one that is completely avoidable is the fumble. But other than that,
Yes.
you are looking at a guy who was wide open all day. There was nothing that they could do. And this is what's funny about that Seattle game. People, Mooney Ward leaves the game. Devin Witherspoon leaves the game. You could argue that the 2 best cornerbacks on the field left within the first few snaps, and both teams had to find a way to get it done. But either way, Reek Willen's a good player, but either way, it was Brandon Aiyuk's show, and there was nothing they could do about it, right? Like there was definitely times where there could have been a little bit more. I just don't know who the miscommunications on. I don't know what was being coached. I don't know what the route combination, everything else was. And I refuse to just say, hey, it was this guy or it was this guy without knowing for sure or knowing how it's coached. You can give an opinion, but the idea that it's like, oh, that one's on Aiyuk. We don't know that. We just don't know that.
Yeah, we don't. It just appears it looks like there was a miscommunication. Like one guy
That's the
thought
only
one
stat.
thing,
That's the
and
only
the
thing
other
that's
guy
true is that
thought
there's a
another.
miscommunication. Yeah, that's the only thing
Yeah,
that's true is that it's a
right.
miscommunication. Who's it on? We don't
They
know.
they weren't on the same page. That's what it comes down
That's
to.
it. That's it.
Yeah. To assign blame or fault, no idea. They were close enough that it was almost a nice play. But again, just how paper thin the margins of error is in these games, right? You sit it down a little too soon. Quarterback thinks you're going to come across the field. Things happen, and
Right.
that's what happened. So the turnover of the fumble, I agree. You got to tuck that thing away. I was
You do.
actually watching some other plays of Aiyuk, and that's actually it popped up where he broke free and he's holding that thing out of there like a loaf of bread, kind of. I think
Yeah.
maybe we see him keeping it nice and tight from here on out.
Yeah.
We'll see, because I'm sure he was upset about that.
You know what I loved
I would
about that
give
play,
him
Greg?
a B minus though. I was like C plus B
Yeah.
minus. That was about where I was too.
You know what I loved about after that play? Steve Wilkes is on defense, and he comes over and he says, "Don't worry about it. We'll get it back. We'll get it back. Like, don't worry about it. We'll get it back." Such a close knit group. As a defensive coordinator, you got to get right back to calling plays right then. But his main thing was telling BA coming off the sideline, we'll get it back. Don't worry about it. We'll get it back. I think again, it's kind of funny. I mean, I don't know if there's any super chats about this, but man, a lot of people wanted Steve Wilkes fired. How do you feel about that now? Because I don't hear anything about that. And it goes back to being reactionary. We wanted to fire D'Amico Ryans and fire Robert Saleh and
We're
fire
three
Steve.
for three on defensive coordinators on wanting them fired.
Maybe,
Just remember
maybe,
that.
maybe whoever the next defensive coordinator is, this is the secret sauce. We have to start calling for him to be fired, and then everything will get, figured out. I'll never understand the fire him right now. Don't even give him a chance. And then out of the bye week, boom, secondary's playing lights out. Boom, the pressures are right back. Boom, he's on the sideline, and that's it. All things are fixed. Let's slow down, guys, just a little
No,
bit. I know we're passionate.
I see the comments of, well, see, that's all it took. A little bullying helped a little bit. It's like, shut up, man. Like, come on. Like, that had nothing to do with it.
Trust the
Right?
coaching staff. Kyle Shanahan and him got into
Overreacted.
Kyle and him got into it in the bye week. Kyle knows offense. Kyle's looking at what he attacks on defenses. Steve Wilkes is learning a little bit more when it comes to that. He's trying to fix himself into a scheme that's not his. He didn't implement his scheme. He's learning wide nine. He's trying to figure all those things out. Also helps that Chase Young shows up. But then the biggest adjustment is we got to get Isaiah Oliver off the field, who played well on Sunday, by the way. We got to get Isaiah Oliver off the field. We're going to put Ambry Thomas out there. Ambry's got a lot of confidence, and he's playing well right now. Demo's growing. As you can see, even when he had to go play outside, we gotta just like let it play out a little bit more. It's the same thing in the first quarter of like games when we're like, oh my god, fire this guy. Kyle's not in his bag. He's gathering information. Like, let's just let things play out before we try to send people to the unemployment line.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times I've been yelled at by this fan base for refusing to say someone needs to be fired. It's never going to be something I'm going to say ever, unless I genuinely believe it. Like Josh
Yeah.
Norman, I thought he should be fired from this team, but you know what I mean. Like, I'm not coming after someone's livelihood. Like we don't. This is the problem with the a lot the way people analyze football. One, they analyze it week to week. This is a body of work game, whether it's individual games, individual seasons, individual careers. You need body of work to be able to truly evaluate and analyze something to what we think it could be. But not only that, there's another layer. We have no idea what's going on inside the building. We have no idea who's pulling what levers. We have no idea who's responsible for what, this, that, and the other thing. Yet we're so definitive and so quick to be like, well, it's Steve Wilkes. He's the new guy. He's the only thing that's different. Fire this guy. It's just like, man, just chill. Like, I remember people yelling at me for not saying fire Kyle Shanahan. Like, literally in my comments, Brad, you're such a homer. Why won't you say fire Kyle? Why won't you do it? I was like, are you kidding me right now? And guess what? Would you dare say fire Kyle Shanahan right now? Would you dare? And seriously mean it? And stand on we know why someone will, but to seriously stand on business and say fire Kyle Shanahan, like, you had no credibility. But that's the problem, right? Everyone's so reactionary. Like, just let it play out, man. Let it play out.
Like, that is the problem with live tweeting. And this is, look, again, I'm not going to tell anyone how to fan. Because when I live tweet now, I don't live tweet feelings. I live tweet things that are happening. Yeah. Okay. Live tweeting opinions, that's risky. Live tweeting opinions that are unfounded, that's just wrong. Live tweeting with passion, you can do whatever you want. But we live in such a culture,
especially memes, a vibe.
Oh, a vibe, always. And that's always how you're going to keep yourself safe, because nobody can ever whatever. But we live in a social media, especially on X, Twitter. We live on a social media platform that people are looking to jump on someone who has an incorrect take. I mean, freezing cold takes is a real thing, right? Like, and everyone loves to have that aha gotcha moment. The way you protect yourself
every week. I pull receipts.
Oh, I do it as well too. I bookmark everything that I see that I'm like, this is gonna be wrong. I'm gonna wait. That's my thing.
That game, Eagles guy, the Elliott dude, I bookmark his thing in September, and I said I cannot wait to come back to this, and I put him on blast.
The Seattle guy who was like, oh, 49ers see you in Thanksgiving. I was like, oh, this is not gonna come back to bite you. I was like, let's bookmark it. It's a dopamine rush, but if you want to keep yourself from being on the other end of that, just be a little bit more cognizant of what you're about to send out, because regardless of you delete something, the internet's forever. Trust me, I know.
Fire Joan from payroll. You guys remember Joan from payroll?
What the hell? Fire Joan from payroll. What did she do? It's the 50 Cent meme. It's the 50 Cent meme. What'd he say?
Catching strays out here. I wonder if Joan payroll still works for the 49ers. That would be an interesting development.
You know what's awesome? If they like send her the clip, like they're talking about you, and she'd be like, who the hell is that?
Still they're still talking about me. But yeah, man, it's a funny time, but that's the thing. Like, me and you, we've been in this game for a long time now. Like, so we talk about the 49ers for a living. So I think we have a different level of context because we've both been in scenarios where I think we have jumped the gun, and we've been like, we've kind of been emotional, and we're like, I understand why I was emotional.
Yeah.
But I should be more level-headed, because
100%.
level heads prevail, because we know this is a fluid thing, right? Like, we know things change and evolve and move on. So, and it goes both ways. We can be overreactionary with good things too,
or we could be too safe.
I think that's like the circle back to Brock. It's like, people don't know. Am I being overreactionary by saying he's too good? Am I being overreactionary by downplaying what he's doing? You know, like, and I think that's why Brock is such a hot topic, is because everyone's trying to figure out who he is right now. And so because of that, they're trying to gather as much opinions as they can. Well, this guy said this guy said that. You collect all these opinions like infinity stones, and you're like, all right, we have it. We've got the gauntlet of opinions now, and I feel like my opinion matches those opinions, so we're good to go. Like, I'm locked in. I feel confident in what I think about this, right?
And the other thing that you could do is you could just say everything, because then you can always point back to whichever one ends up being right. You can say everything. Brock's bad. Brock's good. But you said Brock's bad. But this is where I said Brock's good, right? Like, there's no.
Jason, you remember my tweet when I said I think Talanoa Hufang is going to have a good season this year, and the thing went crazy.
And PFF was like, look at these guys. Yeah. But see, and then, but you know what's crazy? You know what's crazy is I think, or book it, or like book it, and you're saying that is you like staying 10 toes and just like making a prediction. I think it's based and rooted in rooted in something that you believe, but you understand to not be a certain fact. And shout out to Joseph, man. Thanks, man. This duo is the best. I love watching State of Franchise. Thank you, man. Appreciate that. The thing is, level-headedness is boring, Brad.
It is.
It's who can get the correct opinion out first without doing the work. And remember, you know what's our saying? You know the saying on this. Do you want to get it right, or do you want to be right? Because you can find a way to be right. I can always go back and find something that I said, well, look, I kind of said that, you know, this was what was going to happen, even if I'm standing 10 toes on something that I said way more times, right? And it's just, again, it goes back to the humbleness, and it goes back to understanding, are you fluid? Are you able to take new information? Can you change? Can you form your opinion and change it? It's not flip-flopping if it's done and rooted with new information, and it's just not, you know, one to the other. Like, if you can see yourself clear of saying, I think this player is bad, but you're like, oh, okay, little by little, like you're watching and you're gathering the information. It shouldn't go from one data, I think this player is bad, and then he makes one throw and, oh, he's him. Like that is where you're going to find yourself in a spot where people are like, you're flip-flopping. Being vulnerable and being honest and being able to be fluid is the hardest thing for people to do, because the ego can't take the idea of someone saying, well, you said this, so I don't care what you say about the rest of the stuff. I would rather be that vulnerable, that fluid, that honest, than be someone that just is trying to figure out a way to justify a take that is just wrong.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Chat's been funny today. Let's see. What else do we got? Do we want to, like, what are your thoughts on the Cardinals? What are your thoughts on this game coming up? Kyler Murray, new coaching staff. Kyle Shanahan put a lot of respect on their names.
He
today.
did.
He even compared the Niners to them. And which is funny, because when you look at how they've been playing this year, they're very similar in the sense of, remember that 0-9 team just fought in every game like they thought they were going to win it, but they weren't winning it. But that was one of the cool things about them. I think they set a record for having 5 games losing by 3 points or less, like at a certain point in the season, which was a point to, like, it's gonna get there. It's just not there yet. What do you think about the Cardinals coming up?
No, and I think that's an incredible comparison, right? Because that 2017 team wasn't like, they had games where they were getting blown out, but they didn't get blown out a lot. They were just like really close, right? And I have this discussion a lot with a New York Giants fan, friend of mine, a very good friend of mine, by the way. Shout out to Tommy Cutlets, and they're 1 game out of the wild card. He says that he wants them to lose as many games as possible. And I said, what you need to establish and change is your culture. And it doesn't matter if you have all the high picks, and if you have a really good high pick, if you draft someone that is stepping into a culture that is born from losing, that isn't born from working hard, that isn't moving towards the right thing, it may not matter. And I know that culture is an abstract term. It's something that is a little bit hard to quantify, but that's kind of what the 2017 49ers were, right? They lost a lot of games, and generally that would have put a head coach on the hot seat. But Kyle Shanahan was, first of all, not going to get fired in his first year, but he was building something and trying to build it from the ground up. And how do you do that? You've got to be able to get guys to play as hard as they can, buy in, and even if the results aren't what you're looking for, you are building something so that you can attract other players to come here and play with the culture that you've instilled. All of those things are important. So while you can lose as many games as you want, have the number one pick, look at the Chicago Bears. They can't find a quarterback, right? Like, even though Justin Fields is playing well, not so bad. But how many teams can't find something because their culture is just not right? They never can get it in the right direction. And I think, again, it's hard to quantify culture. It's hard to describe it. You just know when it's being built. And I think when you watch the way that
for an example, the Panthers, they're not doing that. They're the opposite of building.
They're the opposite of culture. Yeah. I mean, you're moving around from coach to coach. Poor Bryce Young, right? Like, they're just not in a good spot.
Players not signing your star players.
On the flip side, the Houston Texans. D'Amico's over there, and regardless of every player, they're losing everybody because CJ Stroud's hurt now. Tank Dell's out for the year. Nico Collins is hurt. But you see the stark difference. It also helps that CJ Stroud's real good, but they're different. They're playing hard. They're fighting for each other. That's the type of thing that you're seeing when you see with culture. Now, with the Cardinals, the point I was going to make was, the Lions, exactly. Shout out to Don Burr. But unfortunately, right now they're kind of like flailing out right now. But for me,
they got a good culture. They're sticking together through it all.
Yeah, and I mean, Dan's going to keep them playing hard. It's just right now they're just not playing well. But the same thing when Josh Dobbs was there earlier on, and I can't wait. They got to have a 30 for 30 on Josh Dobbs' season about being bounced around from 3 different teams and then being benched on Minnesota. Like, man. What an insane, hey, shout out to Nick Mullins. Hey, throw the ball to Justin Jefferson. Fantasy football playoffs start this week. But the Cardinals with Josh Dobbs, right? They beat the Dallas Cowboys. They're in games, right? Like, they look like a team that's kind of there on the cusp of building something under Jonathan Gannon, right? Like, you kind of see if you can get a team with a roster that barren to play that hard, then you know the culture is shifting. It's not like they're just lucky. They're playing hard. They're playing for each other. And that's, I think, what Kyle Shanahan's talking about with the 2017 team is they are in these games. They're playing hard, and they're changing something that was there because who was there before? They had no culture with Cliff Kingsbury, and they haven't had one for a long time. Bruce Arians was probably the last one that actually had like somewhat of a stable culture. Now, and we don't know if this is going to continue, but the Arizona Cardinals compete and they're in a lot of games. And I think that it's harder than you think it is, especially when a roster looks like that. And it's hard to be the guy that has to do it from the ground up. So in a lot of ways, that's what Kyle Shanahan sees in this team that he saw in 2017.
Trap game. Yes or no?
Maybe. This one makes me a little bit more nervous than any other one because Arizona has, for some reason, always played the 49ers very hard. Even when Josh Dobbs was there, that game for a little while was kind of interesting, right? It wasn't.
No, they could not get to Josh Dobbs. Remember that was when like people were freaking out about Nick Bosa. I'm like, there's probably 8 snaps where Nick Bosa is a fingertip away from Dobbs. He was just surgical. He's just getting rid of it.
So Kyler, obviously running quarterback, that's got to give you a little bit more anxiety, right? And then I think we're all still scarred because of Colt McCoy. Colt McCoy. That's it. I mean, all right. So sometimes I have a tendency to be overconfident, right? I see Drew Lock starting on Sunday, and I'm making jokes and I'm making memes, and people are like, oh, well, remember Colt McCoy. Don't do that. See? Like, that is kind of where all of that comes from. I knew Drew Lock wasn't going to beat the San Francisco 49ers. He just wasn't prepared. He wasn't going to be able to do it. But
Jason, every time we have played an offensive line that's been dinged up, I'm like, Bosa's about to eat. And then every single time, crickets. I'm like, oh, well, I'm going to stop saying this because I'm striking out every single time. They got like some rookie backup tackle and he's just doing his job. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to stop talking about this.
But Brad, that's sound logic and conventional wisdom, right? Backup lineman against one of the best in the world. He's about to eat. It's not a crazy thing to think, but that's the NFL and how you prepare, right? You've got to be able to offset the loss of somebody like that. So you change your scheme around. But the Colt McCoy game is what most people are going to hold up as like, there's no way I'm going to say that they're going to start cooking the Cardinals because the Cardinals have given the 49ers fits at times. So my gut says we'll blow out the Cards, which is always a bad sign, right? Like, exactly. Like, in the back of your mind, this is what's funny. Your football mind and again, we have the smartest viewers in the game, right? In your football mind, for a fact the San Francisco 49ers should beat the hell out of the Arizona Cardinals and are
They're the
absolutely
better
better than them.
team. It's not
They are
even
the
in
absolute better
question.
team. And that's your football mind. That's objective. Your football heart says, any given Sunday, oh, I've seen this happen before. I've got PTSD from this game. You start to let that get in the way of the thing that is right there in front of you. And you know what? I think that's great for people who want to, make sure that they're humble, right? Again, fans can fan however they want. Again, like if you're confident, that's not the reason the 49ers are going to lose. You just might,
You're not a
dunked on.
jinx. No, what?
No,
No
you're
matter
not.
what anyone
There's no
tells you,
jinx.
you're not a
There's
jinx.
no jinx. There's no jinx. If they're going to lose because they played a really bad game. But I think one more thing that we're kind of like overlooking, no Armstead, no Hargrave, most likely in this one, right? Maybe no Mooney Ward. Maybe no Spencer
You
Burford,
think
right?
so? No Mooney?
I mean, I don't know. Maybe.
Today. He didn't practice
Maybe.
today.
He didn't practice today. Yeah, maybe.
Neither did Hargrave.
Right. And I hate to say it.
Downplay it.
Right. I hate to say it. The San Francisco 49ers, even with those losses, should still beat the Arizona Cardinals. But remember we talk about like styles make fights? Mm-hmm. If the Cardinals find a way to neutralize the pass rush by possibly going at a matchup that works, and the 49ers are having a tough time, and the Cardinals kind of linger, and maybe the 49ers have one of those wonky turnovers that turns into a touchdown, all of a sudden Kyler Murray's running around and stuff, like that's when games become uncomfortable. So I think that's the part that people can't quantify when they talk about trap games is, why are you nervous about this game? It's not any given Sunday. It's, you have to give credit to coordinators who are able to understand, hey, if Mooney Ward's not there, I want to test Ambry Thomas. I want to test Diamador Lenore. Mm-hmm. We're going to go with them, and we're going to do some things to them that we think we can beat them with skill sets, with skill position guys that we have. And then if you don't execute on your end, you could let a team hang around. So I'm not trying to like talk you into like a Cardinals loss. The 49ers are definitely going to win this game. But I completely understand why there are some people out there that are just saying, hey, I don't know about this one. Possibly. It's one, you're humble, which is a great quality to have. And two, you kind of understand that sometimes games get weird in the NFL. And I think the greatest thing about the NFL is the level of parity. And we forget that on the other side, those offensive coordinators and defensive coordinators and guys who game plan all week, they get paid too. So
I noticed a trend this year just on my channel, because we do Prediction Friday. Every time that I've confidently felt is either going to be a blowout or a close game, it has been the reverse. Like I remember week 2 Rams. Oh, we're about to cook these Rams. They're toast. I remember being in that stadium like, oh my gosh, this is way too close. This is way too close right now. What is happening? I remember going into the Eagles game. Oh, I'm stressing. This is going to be last person to have the ball. It's going to come down to that. 49ers smoked them. So
and Brad, let's take it a step further, Brad, about the Los Angeles Rams. The Los Angeles Rams played the Baltimore Ravens to the buzzer.
Talk about blueprint.
Coaches, right. Coaches, absolutely. Coaches, players, if you have a matchup, right, you don't have to be the better roster to give someone else a fit, right? No. Styles make fights in this league. If you have something that you know is going to work and you can make enough plays, anybody can hang with anybody in any game. It's just about whether you can finish. So, yeah, I understand exactly why there's a little bit of a sentiment about being worried about this game. And I think it's all because of Colt McCoy.
Yes, we've seen the story before, as we like to say. And we're just, cautiously optimistic, I guess, right? Because to your point, we all believe the 49ers are hands down the better team. They're the best team in football. Yeah. And Arizona Cardinals at the bottom of that list. But any given Sunday it happens. But I do believe the 49ers are going to cook.
Yeah, we would literally sit here and tell you why the 49ers are going to win, and we'll have more of those reasons and why they would lose. But we'd be remiss in analyzing this game if we didn't talk about little things like that could happen in these games, right? What if Kyler starts to get some of those back-breaking third downs with his legs? They get one of those bomb throws that, like, maybe someone slips and there's a touchdown, perhaps a special teams touchdown, something like that. It's going to take those types of things for the Cardinals to stay in the game, but us just coming on here and being like, robble, Niners by 90, blah, which could absolutely happen. Like, that's absolutely in the range of outcomes.
That's definitely a range of outcomes.
But we have to at least identify and be objective to the point where we say, listen, those guys get paid too. There are some things that can give the team fits, and the running quarterback thing has got to be one of the things that you want to see kind of stop, because right after Kyler Murray, you get the ultimate guy, Lamar Jackson. So this will be a nice little preemptive test before the Christmas Day game.
Yeah, I think this will be a nice test, and it'll be kind of a nice kind of a way to see where the 49ers heads are at. Do they get a little lax against this team? Do they kind of like, I don't know. We'll see. Because I think, to the point like you made about Drew Lock, like, yeah, we thought this was going to be a cooking, and they were up by 3 points, after the first quarter or something like that. So there's definitely a range of outcomes where the 49ers could come out flat. And I think that's, this is cool.
What?
So I just saw this tweet come out from NBC Sports talking about the the Cam Newton thing, the thing we started the show with. And I saw that they put my video from the tweet in it. And then I looked, I was like, who wrote that?
Jordan Elliott.
What a swell guy, man. Shout out Jordan Elliott.
Our favorite Seattle, Atlanta fan.
Our favorite Mitch Trubisky truther. Like,
oh my God, he's loving all the Trubisky propaganda that's being thrown out there right now.
Yeah, dude. I that completely big time squirrel. But shit, what were we talking about? And
we were talking about the Cardinals and being, worried about possibly falling into a trap. But and you think, is the team going to come out lax? Are they going to have a bit of a letdown? I don't think they will, but we are downplaying the fact that like Armstead, Hargrave, that's not nothing. That's not nothing. But to turn to a positive, Brad Graham, Javon Kinlaw, hello.
Ballin'.
Look at you, buddy. Look at you, man. Look. When we talked about Kinlaw in the offseason, we asked that people strip their expectations of where he was drafted, because he's probably not going to be that guy. But if he can be a solid rotational guy that can spell when someone gets hurt, or can be there as a rotational guy to keep guys fresh, and he can be someone who's solid, I think that's an incredible ace in the hole for them, because it just only makes the line deeper. And Javon Kinlaw seems to be just finally putting it together, because he's finally healthy, man. Again, like it's our reclamation. Well, it's not a reclamation project. I guess these are your comeback stories for the NFL, for the 49ers, Javon Kinlaw and Ambry Thomas. And I think what that speaks to is the confidence that this organization has shown in both of them, the position that they've been put in to succeed, them working hard, and all of it coming together in this way, man. I think it's been incredible to watch him, because there's times when he's absolutely in the backfield now. He's turning himself into a little bit more of a pass rusher than we thought we just thought he would be one of those run defenders. But, a lot of people just wanted him cut. And I think that would have been a huge mistake, because you do need a rotational guy like that. Yeah. So, I mean, good for Javon Kinlaw, man. But anytime, I love when someone's counted out and they just go ahead and they find a way to contribute and play well, man, because I like doing that. I like when people are like, yo, you can't do this, you can't do that. Oh, okay. So now I'm on it now. I want to do it now just to say, haha, I did it.
Happy for Javon, man. Like, he's been through a lot. He's been like, having that first round draft status thrust upon you, that's big, but that wasn't the thing. The thing with the 49er fans is what the 49ers effectively traded Defoe for him, and everyone was freaking shocked that Defoe got moved, because he was captain, leader. He was our guy. I mean, they talked about how Joe Staley passed the torch to DeForest Buckner in the leadership realm of things in the locker room, and then you get rid of a guy like that to literally get his replacement in the draft, and then unfortunate injuries kind of just he showed promise early on. Remember, he had the pick 6 against, the New York Giants, and he showed promise early on. It's just injuries derailed him, and 49er fans, injuries, handshake emoji, PTSD, like it just is not a good combination. And then you take all of that together, and he's just got a bad rap. But I do find an interesting element of this. Remember when Eric Armstead was drafted? And I was one of these guys. Like, I thought Eric was a huge project. And I didn't know about Eric when we drafted him.
That's rooted in your hate for Oregon.
He was a guy I tagged. I'm like, this is a developmental prospect, and developmental prospect have two ways to go, up or down. And so I was just like really concerned about him. I was like, I don't know. I didn't like the pick. And I had big Marcus Peters bias. I wanted them to take Marcus Peters. They passed on him, whatever. So I was angry at Bulky and I took it out on Eric, whatever. The point being is Eric suffered with injuries early on, and Defoe was the guy in the D line. And Eric had to, year after year, work to get back. It's the same thing that's going on with Eric and Kinlaw, but the roles are reversed. Eric's the guy. He's the leader. He's the guy who's bringing Kinlaw along, and Kinlaw is finding that success. I think there's some beauty in that these roles were reversed when Eric entered the league, and now Eric is in the Defoe role, bringing Kinlaw along as the high draft pick, developmental prospect, suffered with injuries, fan base at his neck, and just bringing him up. I really do love that kind of stuff about football, and I think the fact that Eric has reversed that role and is doing it now for Kinlaw and helping him, I think there's something beautiful about that, man. It's hard to not get romantic about football.
Right. And that's the thing, is nobody's story is written. It's not typical for people to, have long stretches of either playing poorly or just overcoming injury before it kind of turns on. But, never underestimate the power of human will. And, things kind of happen, how they're supposed to. So it's really good to see him. And again, Kinlaw isn't like super dominant right now or just like destroying people, but him being a valuable rotational guy.
He's on the
well, that
field.
one, but him being
That's
a valuable
huge.
rotational guy, that has a lot of value. It definitely has a lot of value, especially if we're going to be bracing for possibly a few games absence of Hargrave, even though it sounds like it's not going to be something that's too serious, which, what, if we ever had a week that we could maybe get by without him, is going to be against Arizona, because you do want him for Baltimore, and you do want him obviously ready for the playoffs. But him being on the field and him being able to be productive and not just be a body, I think is one of the coolest stories of the season for the 49ers. And it's kind of been swept under the rug because, Debo's back with the backpack, and McCaffrey's on his way to 2K, and Brock's the MVP,
Purdy.
and and George Kittle's the best tight end in football again, and Big Trent, all those things. Yeah, like there's a lot of stories about this team that are really good, but Kinlaw's been pushed down because there's so many of them.
Right. Gammon says holidays are quickly approaching. 49ers players recently assisted with handing out clothes and toys. Will you be doing anything with charity? Thank you.
I did the Scott Fishbowl thing, which is Toys for Tots. So you get into Scott Fishbowl and they just ask that you donate. Gammon knows our channel. We've donated to St. Jude's Children's Hospital as well too. So I think in the spirit of that, I think we should continue to do that. And I do thank Gammon for bringing this back up so we can give a little back, because we can, and I think again, it's not about the amount. It's about it's just about being cognizant and being just giving, right? I don't believe in too much, but
one person's holiday better.
100%.
That's a win, right?
I don't believe in too much, but I believe in karma, and I do believe in what you put out is what you get back. So yeah, shout out to Gammon. He's always forward thinking, right? Like, and I think that's an incredible idea, and I'd like to continue that.
Yeah, no, that's funny because I saw that yesterday and I had a very similar thought. I was like, huh, like obviously we have big platforms now, and it's like I've never done it before in the past. But it's always interesting to be like, what could we do? Maybe Jason and I can brainstorm on a state of the franchise kind of something. I don't know. We'll put our heads together and see if we can come up with something. But yeah, no, it's that time of the year, Jason. It's holiday season. It's December football. Things are getting amped up, and man, I'm looking forward to what we got ahead. Feels like the 49ers season is definitely coming to a close, but we know the real season is going to begin in the playoffs. So, we got clinched too. Shout out DeVito, right? Helped us clinch the playoff, first team to clinch a spot in the playoffs. So absolutely love that. Shout out to I always call him Danny DeVito, obviously Tommy DeVito.
Tommy
Um,
Cutlets.
Tommy Cutlets.
Tommy Cutlets. His did you see his agent?
Yes.
His
Yes.
agent
It's made
absolutely
for
tried to
TV.
no, he tried to murder Roger Rabbit. Like there's no way that he didn't. And if you guys haven't looked
With
it
the
up, please look up
pinstripes
Tommy.
and the fedora.
Yeah, with the and the hat and everything.
Yeah.
It's like
That's
yo,
hilarious.
it's like it's almost like he understood what people would have made jokes about what the agent would look like and was just like, yeah, that's my look. Like that's what I'm going for. I implore anyone to go out there and Google Tommy DeVito's agent and tell me if he wasn't
That's
trying to catch
hilarious.
Roger Rabbit and put him in the green stuff.
That's hilarious. Oh my goodness. All right, so we got Cardinals coming up. Obviously we want to keep the winning streak alive, want to maintain one seed. That's the other part of like I think that's the other motivation. It's not like, oh, it's the Cardinals. It's clinch the West and maintain the one seed. Like there's a lot to play for still. So not time to take your foot off the gas. So hopefully we're talking about a blowout and not some crazy shenanigans going on Arizona. But last leg of the season, man, 4 games left. Cardinals, Ravens, Washington, Rams. So got a lot of stuff coming up. Anything that you want to talk about that you're doing rest of the week? I know you did a radio show right before we hop on. We got Aponte across the nation on these airwaves. Anything else you're cooking this week, next week? What you got?
Yeah, this week, I wanted to put it together on Tuesday, had some stuff come up, but I think I want to do a call-in show tomorrow with the Spicy Squad. So make sure that you're a channel member because that's where I'll post the link first, before I allow people to call in, and we'll talk about anything that you want. Only requirement is got to make sure you show your face, keep it clean, and just let's have some fun. So we can do that tomorrow. Then Friday, Sprint Right Option, on the channel as well too, and Niners Nation. I wrote an article today. And I think I know the answer. I don't even have to look at the comments, but I wrote an article today that's a survey that I do every Wednesday on Niners Nation. Is this season a failure if the San Francisco 49ers do not win a Super Bowl? I'm fairly certain that the that the responses will be 99% and higher as a yes. So check out Niners Nation. Check that out wherever you guys, get your internet on your phones, on your laptops, tablets, whatever. And subscribe to the channel, man, and join the Spicy Squad so we can have our call-in show tomorrow. Should be fun.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead out and say on a limb that there's no moral victories this year. I think.
Oh no, not this year. No, I specifically wrote in the article. In years past, I would have explained how hard it is to win a Super Bowl. In years past, I would have told you that there's
Right.
some luck that goes into it. Not this year. I'm like, not this year. The way that this team is rolling, the way that they're head and shoulders above everyone else, the way that the only thing that can really get in their way is something that's unforeseen, like health. It would absolutely be a disappointment if the San Francisco 49ers did not finish the job this season. If there was ever a season, it's got to be this one.
Right. And it's like, me, I'm not super hot takey. So I'm always very like level-headed with my takes. Like, so I'm not going to go over my skis one way or the other typically. But I remember this year throughout the training camp and off season, I'm like, no, the expectation is Super Bowl. It's Super Bowl or bust. Like this team is too good. They have too much experience. Even with Brock, like we still don't know. Expectations, Super Bowl or bust. So I've been talking about the 1 seed since week 1. I remember I had some dude chirping me talking about, I think one of the early wins that we had might have been like week 3, talking about the New York Giants win. And he's like, what are you talking about the 1 seed for? I'm like, I've been talking about the 1 seed for like 3 months. Like that's the whole point of this season is to get the 1 seed.
But is it because it was too early in the season or because that shouldn't be a goal?
I don't remember the exact context of what he was chirping me about. I think he was like, "Why?" I think it's either too early or I don't know.
It's never too early.
It's
never too early. Because, you know what's funny? It's never too early because if they did miss out on it and they lost one of those games, they would look back and say, "Well, we lost it at the Giants game," or It's so funny. It's so funny. It's too early to talk about it, but if you do miss out on one game, you're gonna look back at that early season loss in week 1, week 2, week 3, and say it was that one. If they would have got that one, they would have gotten it. It's so funny. It's just people talk out of both sides of their mouths, and just it very rarely gets to a point where it's just like you're actually rooted in any sort of logical like discussion.
100. Gammon says, thank you for using your platforms to enrich lives. Thank you to all of you guys for enriching our lives every time we come on and do State of the Franchise. Always fun, man. Hour 30, like it's nothing. Only could do that with you, my man. So I love doing these every week. Looking forward to do it again next week, Wednesday. State of the Franchise back. I think we're good to go.
Brad, well,
right?
One more thing. Let's see. Should we kind of like put a plan together? Let's see. San Francisco 49ers win on Sunday, and they're the NFC West champions.
Yes.
Emergency episode, kind of like when the 49ers join as the number 1 seed. Like I know you'll probably be at the game. Yeah, something like a little bit later.
No, I won't
like
be at
like
the game. It's away. I'll be.
Oh, that's right.
I'm popping live right away.
Well, yeah. So if they win, they win. I just remember me jumping on with you like after, and it was a little bit more unfiltered. People seem to love that episode. So
no,
maybe
we had Sauce Ponte on after post.
Oh yeah,
after a win, that's a W.
I said I took a shot asking, and I was like in my head, I'm like, I took a bunch of shots actually before.
I know. I got that. It's like, all right, pal. Yeah, I'm down. If you want to do a post game State of the Franchise after Cardinals, I'm down. So y'all better tap in.
All right, let's do it
for that. So you will see us before next Wednesday. We're gonna do a post game live reaction after the 49ers play the Cardinals. I'll say that. All the late night gang vibes. Yep, we were late night ganging it up.
I was shocked, man. That one did better than my instant reaction. Like a lot, and I think it was because of the title, right? We realized that the 49ers had just been pushed up to the number 1 seed following Sunday Night Football. So I'm in here.
Everyone wanted
to vibe, right? But I'm in here, right? And by the time we were done, it was like 1:30, 2 o'clock my time. I was wired. I couldn't go to sleep at all. So it's just like it was perfect. It's a different vibe. That vibe is completely different from this one. This one was very level-headed. This one was a great conversation back and forth. That one was me frying the Eagles, talking crazy, and I think a lot of people like enjoyed the difference.
We were just vibing.
Oh yeah.
That's what like the like straight up reaction videos. Those are vibes. It's all vibes. Like
I go to analysis.
We thought about all this. Like we're thinking. Like we're trying to be. Yeah.
Analysis comes after watching the tape.
Exactly. Yeah. There's no analysis. We're just hyped.
It's just us being like, how the Cardinals stink, how the Phillies lost, the Eagles lost. Ha ha.
Exactly. But appreciate you guys. Post-game show after 49ers Cardinals, and then we'll do State of the Franchise as well. Appreciate all you guys as always. Make sure you sub to the channels as you see on your screen. Smash that like button on both. We appreciate it. And as always, we will see you later. I'm Brad. That's Jason. Peace. That's Jason Aponte. I'm Brad Graham. We're going to get into it all right now.